Yo, what's good, everyone? Sideshow MMA here, and today I'll be breaking down the card. Kape versus Almabayev, UFC Fight Night coming up this weekend. So yeah, let's get right into the card, starting with the early prelims. First fight on the card is Charles Johnson versus Ramzanbek Tamirov. This is a super fun fight. I do like Johnson in this one. Tamirov does have a ton of power. In the fight against CJ Vergara, he had vicious body shots. He does tend to overswing a lot. Like there were times in that fight where he's literally jumping into punches because he's out of range and he just can't get in range. But like he's very powerful. So like if they connect, it's like that could be it. But Charles Johnson is just super good. I think he's probably gonna be a little too slick for him. KO Josh Van, that was a good one. Ruined my day. A good win over Suma Dwerji in his last one, and I believe October it was. But yeah, Tamirov, I feel like if you're picking Tamirov, you're relying on him getting an early KO. He swings with everything on every shot. So, even when he's out of range, like he's trying to KO you. Even if you're nowhere near him, he's going for it. So, I think as the fight goes on, Tamirov will start to gas because throwing like that's not sustainable. And I do think Johnson will start to get more comfortable in his head movement. He'll settle into the fight a little more, start making Tamirov miss. And as the fight goes on, I see Johnson TKOing him late into the fight as Tamirov starts to gas. And yeah, I just think Johnson's a little too good. I just think this is a little bit too much of a step up in competition. I like Charles Johnson, and I think he's good enough to beat Tamirov. But moving up the card, Montana De La Rosa versus Luana Carolina. We'll go Luana Carolina. De La Rosa is pretty shit. So, yeah. Next, Danny Silva versus Lucas Almeida. Lucas Almeida is just the definition of mid. Lost to Pat Sabatini. Come on. Lost to Andre Fili. Not super impressed by the Timmy Kawamba performance. Even though he won by unanimous decision, he didn't really look great in the fight. Where Danny Silva, he beat Joshua Kalibau, which isn't a terrible win at all. Kalibau beat Melsik Bagdasaryan, which is a good win. I know Bagdasaryan just got destroyed by Silva, but dude, he's a good fighter. Silva hurt Kalibau, not Gene Silva. Danny Silva, by the way, to clarify. Danny Silva hurt Kalibau multiple times in that fight. I'm going to trust in the power and overall skill of Danny Silva. I think he'll finish Lucas Almeida maybe in round 2 by TKO. I think Danny Silva is a good fighter. So yeah. Moving up the card, Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich. I'll go JJ Aldrich. I can't believe this is a real fight in 2025. They both are terrible. Like none of them win. They both don't win ever. Like I don't understand. I can't believe this is a fight on a card in 2025. But yeah, next, Douglas Silva de Andrade versus John Castaneda. John Castaneda has really only lost to good competition in the UFC. Lost to Nathaniel Wood, Daniel Santos, and most recently Daniel Marcos. He beat Daniel Marcos is undefeated, so like these aren't bad wins at all. We know Nathaniel Wood's good. Daniel Santos, he had the good fight with Manel Kape, who we'll get to. And yeah, Daniel Marcos is a good prospect. He beat guys like Miles Johns with ease, whereas Douglas Silva de Andrade, he loses to guys like Miles Johns. He lost to Miles Johns. Castaneda is a good striker. He's southpaw. He beat Muin Gafarov, which is a great win. I'm gonna go with Castaneda getting it done by decision. I do think Douglas Silva de Andrade will have moments in this fight. You can't count him out completely because he's a bit of a crafty vet. But it won't be enough, and I think Castaneda will win by unanimous decision, 29-28. So yeah. Moving on, Chepe Mariscal versus Ricardo Ramos. Mariscal's a decent grappler. He's all right at striking. He's just mid. Like, Chepe Mariscal is just the definition of mid, not super impressed with any of his performances, despite him having like some decent wins. He arguably lost to Morgan Charrier. I thought he lost the fight. Charrier just kept tagging him up, and he dealt with the grappling well. He missed weight for the Damon Jackson fight, which I believe was his last fight. He beat Jack Jenkins, but Jenkins got hurt in that fight. Like, he's just been getting super lucky. Ricardo Ramos is a fun, tricky striker. His style is super fun. Made a really sick KO over Danny Chavez, spinning back elbow, I believe. But he's just another guy I'm not super impressed with. Like, despite him having the more fun style. Never been super impressed. Lost to Charles Jourdain, who I don't think is very good, even though I think the UFC community, MMA community overrates Jourdain. I never thought he was very good. And he lost to Julian Erosa, which is like, come on, dude. I think I'm going to go Chepe Mariscal in this. They're both pretty mid. I do think it's a tough stylistic matchup for Ramos to deal with. And I think Mariscal will get it done. I'll go decision win for Mariscal, 29-28. I think that's safe. But yeah, on to the main card. Danny Barlow versus Sam Patterson. I'm going to go with Danny Barlow. No, he's a fun, young, exciting prospect. I do think he has some holes in his game. I will say that. But from what we've seen, he beat the shit out of Josh Quinlan and got the finish in round 3. Pretty powerful, but he tends to get a little reckless at times. I think Danny Barlow, there's a lot of room for him to be really good, but a lot of room for improvement as well. What I will say, though, speaking of power and Sam Patterson, that's typically a recipe for disaster. I think Patterson probably will get KO'd early. We saw him get killed with a counter left by Yanel Ashmuz. I can really see a similar thing happening here, especially with a guy whose nickname is literally left hand to God and Danny Barlow. I do worry about, Sam Patterson getting fucking chinned early. Someone who's picking Danny Barlow, I do have a slight fear of the grappling of Sam Patterson. That can't be completely ruled out of this. I think there's a chance he could potentially take control of Barlow and the grappling as the fight progresses, as Barlow starts to fatigue a little bit, taking the pop out of his shots. I think that there is some worry if you're picking Barlow and Patterson potentially just like getting control of him in the grappling and riding out a decision. But I'm leaning on Barlow to get the KO early. I just see Patterson, at range with Barlow. They're both jabbing at range, trying to find their range, and then out of nowhere, Barlow KOs him with a left hand. I like Danny Barlow in this. I think Patterson, we've seen him get cracked with a counter left before. I just think it's all making too much sense. So we're gonna go Danny Barlow. Moving on, Haider Emil versus Willem Gomez. I like Willem Gomez in this fight. It's pretty competitive, to be honest, but Willem Gomez, he will try and wet blanket Haider Emil in this fight. I think Haider Emil is fun, but I don't think he's very good. He has a chance in this one, but I've never been particularly impressed with his performances. I think Gomez will win this fight by controlling Haider Emil throughout the fight, taking the back, pinning him down, landing the bigger shots on the ground. Controlling. That's what Willem Gomez does. He controls. So I think he'll win by boring wet blanket decision. I think Emil could have moments where he catches Gomez, but it won't be enough. Willem Gomez is just an elite grappler, and I think he'll make somewhat easy work of Haider Emil. Haider Emil, he's a fun style, but I just don't know if he's good enough to beat Willem Gomez. But moving up the card, Austin Lane versus Mario Pinto. Mario Pinto's going to destroy this clown, all right? Austin Lane is fucking terrible. He's god-awful. He has zero talent. He lacks the ability to fight, which is surprising because his career is a fighter. You can't lose to a Tafa, bro, ever. Like, that just can't happen. You can't be losing to the Tafas, dude. I cannot pick him to win this fight. He's a terrorist of the sport. He ruined a fun prospect in Rebellis de Spain. Robelis got cut after the Austin Lane fight. This dude's a fucking clown. No skill. Pinto has a ton of good finishes. I'm counting on him to brutalize Austin Lane. Can't be brutal enough. Hopefully Lane retires in the cage and relieves us of ever having to watch him fight again. I'm going to go Mario Pinto. First round TKO. Moving on. Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics. Oh, all right. I like Ribovics in this fight. I think he'll get the finish over Haqparast. He's a 6 striker, super talented. Really good. He's just a really good fighter. Destroyed Terrence McKinney, thank God. Had a war with Daniel Zellhuber. In the Sphere, one of the best fights I've ever seen. That was such a fun fight, super back and forth. And Zellhuber's no slouch, dude. So that was a really good fight. He really impressed me. In the Zellhuber fight, his composure, in particular, his ability to keep going, his ability to land efficient strikes. I see Ribovics going far in the division, for sure. Nasrat Haqparast, I don't want to say he's not great, but he's not like, he's never wowed me, Split decision with Jared Gordon. Yeah, that just can't happen. Especially against a guy like Ribovics, dude, who's so good. I don't know. I've never been wowed by Haqparast. I just think Ribovics is too talented. I think he'll get the better of Haqparast in the striking. Body shots. He'll start to land body shots as the fight goes on, taking the wind out of Haqparast and maybe get a round 3 finish by TKO. So, yeah. Moving on to the co-main event. This is the co-main event is Cody Brundage versus Julian Marquez is the co-main event. And on a 2025 fight night. This is insane, dude. Brundage versus Marquez. What the fuck is this fight? Genuinely, what the fuck am I looking at? I'll go Brundage, dude. Marquez hasn't won since 2021. So enough said there. I can't believe that's a real fight, and that's the co-main event on this card. Anyway, moving on to the main event. We flew through these. Manel Kape versus Alsu Almabayev. All right. I like Manel Kape in this. I think Almabayev is a pretty strong grappler. Almabayev, he tends to get reckless on the feet at times. He's got decent spinning kicks. That's something I will say. He did drop Mateus Nicolau, but I'm not very impressed by that. Nicolau was coming off getting slept by Alex Perez. That's something to mention. And, I'm not super fond of Mateus Nicolau's chin. So, getting him dropping Nicolau is just whatever to me. Speaking on the Nicolau fight, he struggled to get him down in their fight at times. He also almost got subbed by Nicolau with a guillotine. So yeah, Almabayev, he does just kind of wet blanket his opponents. He doesn't really look to land damage or finish the fight. I don't know. He's a good grappler. That's obvious. But I just think he gets a little wild on the feet. And grappling, people might bring up with Manel Kape how he was taken down by Horiguchi and Rizin, and he was held down and even subbed at the end of their fight. People might bring that up when talking about the grappling of Manel Kape. But, dude, the fight was in 2017. He's super improved since then. He showed good takedown defense against Muhammad Makayev. He stuffed the majority of the takedowns with a broken toe in that fight. That has to be mentioned. Really good sprawls in that one. He was super quick. And even when he was on the ground, he was not just laying there giving up. No, he was landing really good strikes from bottom, really good ground elbows, which I could see him utilizing against Almabayev, especially if Almabayev is just controlling him, looking to ride out the round. It's damage-based scoring. Let's not forget, if Almabayev is riding out the round, by holding down Kape and wet blanketing him, and Manel Kape's landing vicious elbows from bottom, he could potentially get that round for himself on one or more of the judges' scorecards, so that has to be mentioned. He does that really well. He did that really well against Makayev. And honestly, I couldn't see this fight being kind of slow. I can see Almabayev getting an early takedown on Kape when they're both dry and not super sweaty. And I can see him holding him down for one of the early rounds. But I think as the fight progresses, it favors Manel Kape. I see Kape defending takedowns as the fight goes on. And once he starts, to settle in, beating Almabayev on the feet, for sure, Manel Kape, once he starts to settle into a fight, he like enters a flow state, and he's really difficult to deal with for anyone in that division. And I can see him beating Almabayev by decision. Yeah, I just think stylistically, Manel Kape can easily get this done. I think there's a clearer path to victory for Manel Kape, especially as the fight goes on. He'll start stuffing the takedowns of Almabayev, landing the better shots on the feet. And I do think he'll win by decision. I could see, like I said, Almabayev getting one of the early rounds, but yeah, I like Manel Kape in this a lot. And yeah, I just think Manel Kape is that next level. And if I'm being honest, you know, this fight, I know Almabayev's coming in on short notice. That also does have to be mentioned. But yeah, so I'm gonna lean Manel Kape. This is a decent card. Overall, it's all right. It's like there's some fun fights, but like the co-main event is like insane. The JJ Aldridge fight is like insane. Like, but yeah, it's a decent card. So yeah, hopefully we get a good night of fights and we do well on these predictions. So yeah, appreciate everyone watching, and yeah, peace.